Hello, Gaston County, and welcome to episode number 21, the first episode of season number 2 of Gaston's Great. And as you can tell, we are experimenting with new music that was very loud, Amy. So Gaston's Great is a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we are coming to you from the international headquarters of GSM Services and looking forward to having some great discussions in the coming weeks and months. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We're highlighting another, and when I say another great organization, I really mean it this week. And we have Regina Moody and Kerri Massey from Holy Angels. Regina is the Chief Executive Officer and President, and Kerri is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer. Regina and Kerri, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
Well, you're very, very welcome, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion. So maybe, Regina, I'll start with you, if you don't mind. Just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, anything you'd like to share.
So I think the question is, how did I get here? Because I came from New York, from Long Island, New York. I arrived in Belmont in 1969 as a student at Sacred Heart College, which, of course, is closed in the late 80s. And following graduation, I decided to stay in Belmont and took a position within the Gaston County Schools as a special education teacher, even though I was a social work and minor education major at Sacred Heart. From there, I taught for about 6 years in the field of special education and then went on to St. Michael's Elementary School as the principal. And I stayed there for 3 years because I was interested in administration. And after that, I was invited to apply for the position of, at the time it was called Executive Director at Holy Angels, and today, of course, it's the title that you've already shared. And I was hired, and it was I was the first lay person to assume leadership at Holy Angels, which was then called the nursery. And so 40 years later, I'm still there and going strong.
So just a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, very good. Kerri, what about you?
So how did I get here? Well, I am a Charlotte native, and I was always familiar with Holy Angels. And as Gaston County thinks that Charlotte natives don't like Gaston County, I will tell you, I grew up feeling that I might not ever live in Gaston County. Yet here I am. I began working at Holy Angels in 1998 as a social worker. My background is social work. I went to Western Carolina and
Go Catamounts.
Yeah, go Catamounts. So came here as a social worker in 1998, and my heart obviously has never left, and won't go willingly.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Now, I don't know if this was actually on the question list, but I'm going to ask anyway. Maybe either one of you, maybe Regina, start with you. Can you kind of share a real quick history of the organization? Because some listeners might not really know. I mean, Holy Angels is probably one of the most well-known organizations in Gaston County, and I know it's much bigger, it's much more well-known than here in Gaston County, but maybe just kind of a short history, if you could.
Yeah, sure. Actually, we're celebrating 65 years of service this year. We'll be wrapping up our 65th year in December. And we began back 65 years ago when the Sisters of Mercy, who really were in Belmont and, as you know, had a lot of involvement with Sacred Heart College, and particularly bringing education to the forefront in Gaston County schools as teachers were graduating from there. But also what they did was they were in healthcare. They ran Mercy, or owned Mercy Hospital and St. Joseph's Hospital in Asheville. And in the early days of Holy Angels, Sister Patrice, who was the original foundress, was running a day nursery on the campus of Holy Angels, or the Sisters of Mercy, and was taking care of regular kids from the community. Those parents lived in the area and probably worked in the textile mills, and she was called by a physician who delivered Maria Morrow, who was our first resident for the nursery, and was asked would she take care of her, that this baby was born with hydrocephalus and spina bifida and was not expected to live, and also would have many disabilities and probably would not be able to function. And so Sister Patrice said yes, and really that was the beginning of a love story. Sister Patrice was quite a character, and she took care of many children, and Maria was no exception. But after about 3 weeks of being at the nursery, coming by taxi cab, if you can think about that, to the nursery, which was on the campus. It was an old engineer's cottage. Maria got sick, and she had fever and things like that. And so her mom, who was 16, who worked in the textile mill, asked Sister Patrice, will you take care of my baby? And Sister Patrice said yes. And typically, sisters usually have to get permission to do such things like expand their work. Sister Patrice didn't do that. She was a little bit of a renegade and said yes. And really, that was the beginning of a love story between Sister Patrice, Holy Angels, was the nursery at the time, and Maria's family. And so that's really how we began, and it really was out of need. And as a result, the story of Holy Angels, or the nursery, over the years has spread widely throughout the country, particularly in the Southeast, in serving children who were born with very severe disabilities. And back in the early 50s and so on, there was really no place for babies that were born as severely disabled as Maria, and institutions only took children at the age of 6. So Holy Angels was really a pioneer in its day for serving children that really had very severe needs.
So she decided she was going to ask for forgiveness instead of permission.
Yes, that's exactly right.
That seems
and you know, had she not stepped out there, I don't know where we would be today.
Right.
But you know, we're certainly grateful to her commitment to serve this baby that really needed care. And then, of course, as you know, Maria lived on to be 57 and really battled cancer twice before she passed away.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great story. And I think there's so many times when organizations or stories like the Holy Angels, there is somebody with some passion that kind of maybe steps out to get something accomplished, you know, regardless of what the consequences might be. Can you tell me maybe, Kerri, or either one of you actually, what can you tell me about the specific mission of Holy Angels? I mean, I've read it on the website, but you know, I think you'd like to share that.
Sure, absolutely. Well, Holy Angels is a place of loving, living, and learning for the differently able. That's really what we like to say in a nutshell. And we provide innovative services to adults and children who have intellectual developmental disabilities, and many of them are medically fragile. So on our campus, we have 7 residential homes that consist of children and adults, and then we have 2 other homes that are off campus. And we have snoozling rooms, which are really sensory rooms on our campus. We have a full greenhouse. We also have a place called Camp Hope that is on the Catawba River that is wheelchair accessible and accessible to all of our residents to have a good time, go on boat rides, and just do normal things like we all do.
Okay, well, that's good. What about, this is a really big question, and so this is for both of you, whoever would like to interject, or can you share some of the specific initiatives that the organization is involved with, or just, I'm not sure if that's the right way to word that, but kind of share some of the things that you've got going on, specific initiatives maybe.
Yeah, sure, I'll be glad to. Basically, in 1982, when I arrived at Holy Angels, my job was to take the program from what was then a custodial model of care, where we provided a lot of love and care, but we weren't really providing any program or services or education. And so the whole approach for services was to expand our services and provide a developmental model, which means that we're allowing and providing opportunities for the children and the adults we serve to be the best they can be and to develop as normally as possible, whatever that may be. And so often we don't know what that is. And so as a result, we started with, I mentioned the engineer cottage on campus in the early 70s, the building that you see, and most people in Gaston County who ride by on 74 see Holy Angels and they see the bushes, you know, and it says Holy Angels, and people wonder what goes on behind the bushes. And so for us, it's a home, it's a place of love. As Kerri mentioned, you know, it's about loving, living, and learning. But in that home, we have developed a comprehensive care model which includes all of the therapies that children or adults who have disabilities may need. Everything, obviously, nursing and medical services are kind of our hallmark. That's our specialty, serving the medically fragile. But we also provide physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, recreation therapy, special education, social work, and the list goes on. And basically, we kind of wrap around the services for each individual child and family that we serve. Additionally, I think in the early days, people weren't really sure if children were, quote, abandoned or whatever, and that's not the case. Families are involved at Holy Angels with their children and adults, and we have kind of opened the campus. We had the one main building that you could see behind the bushes, but so much more goes on, and I've mentioned some of those therapies and things that we do, but I think the most important thing is that, we're providing a service that's needed, but an opportunity for people to be the best they can be. And so we've evolved over the years. We've added horticulture therapy. We've added creative arts, as Kerri mentioned. We have a very expansive campus, and you can't really see it, but the homes that are on the campus are all very attractive, and we have people that work 24/7, 365 days a year to take care of folks. Everybody we serve now does require total care in terms of supports, and so we have an education program. We have teachers on our staff that provide special education. We also offer music therapy, and about 25 years ago, we decided that some of the children that grew up to be adults that came to Holy Angels as infants were needing an opportunity to kind of get out in the real world and have the opportunity to work. And so you may be familiar with our Cherubs Cafe and our Cotton Candy Factory and our Bliss Gallery that are located on Main Street in Belmont. And that was an opportunity for us to provide meaningful work to those folks that really wanted to work. And we since have expanded into McAdenville and have a little cafe there called Spruce Goose Station. So the community is getting to know us through our businesses, and that was really by design, not only to provide meaningful work and an opportunity for people to feel good about what they're doing, but also for the community to learn about Holy Angels' broader mission, which is much greater. And I think Kerri could probably add more to some of the other services we're providing and the initiatives that we have.
Sure. One of the things that is really important to Holy Angels is that we are integrated in our community. And as Regina said, with our businesses, we encourage our employees, particularly our leaders, to be involved in the community, to be connected with all that's going on, whether it's with the chamber or any other local initiative. But also we love bringing the community to us. Pre-COVID, I will say, it has certainly changed how we do things, but prior to COVID, we have and had and still will have a strong volunteer program. We also have a volunteering program that is really unique because we invite teenagers to come and experience their summers at Holy Angels to learn about the folks that we're serving and to help them understand that they are really no different than anybody else in this world and really aren't different than they are. And it has really, the program has been amazing because we have adults who were in our volunteering program who work for us now.
Oh, wow.
And we have teenagers in our community and adults in our community who are now educated on what it means to be a friend to somebody who has a developmental disability. And we've seen lives changed, not only with our residents and our employees at Holy Angels, but also with other people in the community who may not have otherwise learned about what we do here at Holy Angels. So the community is really an important part of what we do and certainly one of our initiatives.
Yeah, I knew this was going to be a big list, but I appreciate that because we could probably break those down and have an individual podcast on kind of each one of those initiatives. But I will say that I've had many breakfasts at Cherubs Cafe after an F3 workout in Belmont. So yeah, that's a popular place downtown. This is kind of one of my favorite questions, and I'm going to imagine you guys could have a gazillion stories. But is there a specific example or story related to a individual or a family that has really been impacted, or something you could an anecdotal story you can share?
Yeah, sure. One thing I do want to add that to what Kerri and I have already said is that I mentioned our specialty or our niche is the medically fragile, and one of the things we're really fortunate to have, which is very unique for this county, for this state, and probably for the nation, is that we have a 24/7 nursing staff that care for our entire resident population, which is about 85 right now. But we also are blessed with an on-site infirmary or healthcare center, along with a medical clinic as well as a dental clinic. and that's rather unique. As you can imagine, the majority of people we serve use wheelchairs, and logistically they're quite challenging to take places. So having this clinic model is a really important model, but we also have about 20 specialty physicians that come to Holy Angels and have clinics, everything from orthopedics to neurology to psychiatry, and it goes on. And I think that's important because that's what allows us to provide the quality of care that we provide, but also the commitment and the understanding from the community. And as a result, we do serve many people with many different conditions, but one of the stories that I would share with you is that Martha is an adult who is 50 years old who came to us at 8 months old and has been with us her whole life. And she came in with many complications back in the day, everything from a heart problem to a vision problem. And today she was not expected to live, as was the case with many of the children and babies brought to Holy Angels, but she's living and thriving. And her parents really are grateful for Holy Angels because they never thought Martha would live this long. But the joy that Martha has brought to her family and to the people that know her at Holy Angels is truly a blessing. And I think that if you meet Martha, she might be walking with the walker when she sees you, but as soon as the music goes on, she's dancing without the walker. So she's a great example of being the best she can be.
Oh, that's terrific. Kerri, anything you'd like to add to that? Or?
I'll just add that, Martha has a great story. We do have a resident who lives with us. She's 32 now. She came to us when she was 13. She's not able to talk and communicate with words, but is very smart and intelligent and can communicate through an iPad. And she came to us. Her name is Sarah. She came to us, again, like I said, when she was 13. But in the last 3 years, she's been diagnosed with breast cancer. She's had a double mastectomy and experienced things that most of us haven't in our entire lives. And now, she is walking through a battle with cancer. And the fact that 65 years ago, Sister Patrice said yes, and that Holy Angels is led by someone who continues to say yes, is amazing that we can serve someone like Sarah.
Well, that's good. That's another terrific story. I'm sure you have many more. And this is, I'm sure, we've already talked about a lot of things, and this is probably a difficult question, but maybe start with you, Kerri. Can you single out one or two things maybe that you're most proud of accomplishing? I realize, that might be hard to narrow down, but.
Sure. So much goes on at Holy Angels. I mean, we talk every day about it really is a circus by design because we want it to be a place that is fun and
right.
and that we always have things going on. So every day is a new accomplishment, to be quite honest. But, I will just say that the way that we treat our residents and their families as people who matter in this world, I think is a great accomplishment for us. The other thing I would say is that, as you can imagine, based on our funding and how we receive our dollars, that we are highly regulated locally, the state, federally, and even internationally where we are regulated. And so, one of the proudest things for me, and I know for Regina and our whole team, is that, we are nationally accredited. We are embarking on our third 3-year accreditation coming up, and that is no hard feat. And not many providers that do what we do can say that they are nationally accredited. Not to mention that, from a state perspective, we're very connected with our state. They know who we are. They know what we do. And when the state comes in to do their annual inspections, I'm proud to say that the last 3 years we've had 0 deficiency inspections. And so that is huge. You don't hear that in
right.
what we're doing. And so those are just, things that stick out in my mind at this very minute. But every day is accomplishment. I'll tell you another one is that, we have all struggled the last almost 2 years with the pandemic. And we managed through this pandemic to not lose one resident. We had a few residents who did get COVID. One was hospitalized, but she is okay now and doing well. And the fact that we were able and have, and even through today, been able to mitigate that in our facility and our homes is a major accomplishment.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would assume that would be unusual.
Yes.
I would assume. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm sure no medical expert, but that seems like quite a feat. Regina, anything you'd like to share about maybe what you might could share in 40 years at Holy Angels?
Well, it's Holy Angels is really about the people and,
Sure.
The compassion and the passion that they have. And, we always say at Holy Angels that it's really not a job, it's a mission. And if people aren't interested in being part of the mission, whether they be an employee or a volunteer, they're not going to make it. So, I think the uniqueness of the work, it's hard work, it's emotionally draining, physically draining, spiritually draining at times, and all of those things. But at the end of the day, it's people making a difference every day, from little things of maybe getting a young child to hold a spoon and bring the spoon to their mouth, to somebody like Martha, who I mentioned, whose medical condition has been managed so well that she is living as well as she can and has a job in our businesses and loves it. So, I think just making a difference in so many different ways for the people that we serve and the people that support us, whether they be employees, people that donate, people that volunteer, whatever it may be.
Those are some terrific stories. So this is another question I like, and I'm going to make a couple comments here real quick because I've been real fortunate to talk to a lot of people the last 7 or 8 months now since we've been doing the podcast. But I'm afraid Holy Angels is an example of an organization where the people that live here take it for granted because we're just so used to it being here. Maybe like the Shield Museum is such a well-known organization, maybe more well-known outside of Gaston County, and Holy Angels might be, it might be the same way because we're so used to just driving by there. Hey, that's great, But some of the stuff I'm involved with the community, I'm aware of everything that you guys do. But kind of with that said, why do you maybe Kerri, start with you? Why would you say Gaston County specifically is a better place because Holy Angels is here?
Wow. Well, we have heart at Holy Angels, and I know that the citizens of Gaston County have heart too. And, we employ 350 people. I don't think people realize what a large organization
I knew it was
we
large,
are.
but I had no
Yes.
idea.
So not only are we taking care of God's most precious angels right here in Gaston County, right now we're serving 83 of them residentially. We employ 350 people. The majority of them are Gaston County residents. And so I think that our heart, our mission exemplifies how well we make Gaston County a greater place.
So am I right? And what is I heard you say about the number of team members that you have from Gaston County. What about the residents as well? Are they
80? Yeah.
So
yes. So we have, I don't know exactly how many residents live in Gaston County or are from Gaston County predominantly, probably the higher percentage, but we are a statewide provider. We do serve folks who live or from across the state of North Carolina.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Regina, what about you? What would you say to that question about why is Gaston County better?
Well, I think that unless you have a need, you may not know about Holy Angels.
Right.
But I think what has happened over the years as we've developed our programs and services, we've extended an invitation for the community to be involved and to do good and to be kind. And, we hear so often being kind. And, I said this to somebody yesterday, our residents are the kindest people you could meet because they don't talk back. They don't give you a hard time. They're just grateful, and they love unconditionally. And I think what people experience when they come to Holy Angels is love. And so along with heart, I think love goes with it. And so if you've ever been a part of Holy Angels, anything that we've done, you can feel the heart, you can feel the love, and you can feel the heartbeat. So I think that doing good and being kind is important. And I think all of us in the world today need that opportunity. And we're very excited about hopefully looking forward into the future to be able to allow people back on our campus. Because of COVID, we've been closed down, as you can imagine. But I think that Gaston County is better because Holy Angels is unique. There's
Absolutely.
no place else like it. We hear that often from people all over the country.
So that was a great segue, what you just mentioned. So maybe stay with you, Regina. What do you envision the organization looking like 5 to 10 years, or maybe even further down the road?
Well, philosophically, I've provided leadership for the past 40 years, and my philosophy is that if we can't see it, touch it, and feel it, then maybe we don't need to do it. And so our guidance and direction in terms of services, there are many people that provide great services, but they're expanded throughout the state, throughout the community. We've kind of decided on this campus model, and that's worked well. And I've always thought, no more than 100 people in a residential program, because if you think about 24/7, 365, that's pretty major to take care of people that have total needs. So for the future, I think, and Kerri and I have talked about this quite often, and our board has, to stay the course on how we've developed services over the years. One of the things that's been new for us is that we started out 0 to 6. I mentioned that earlier.
Right.
Well, today, our youngest resident is 5, and our oldest is 79.
Oh,
so
wow.
we become a birth to death kind of place. And as a result, we have to learn how to do things differently for a senior citizen, so to speak, and a young child. But I think for the future of Holy Angels that our residential services will be needed and continue on. It may be different. It may look differently. We are looking into the future to develop some children's facilities because of need. Our building is almost 50 years old that our children live in, and it's aging.
Right.
It's aging well, but it needs to be replaced. So that's in the future for us, and I think that'll happen hopefully within the next 3 to 5 years. And beyond that, I think one of our greatest gifts is our ability to develop services that are comprehensive and innovative, and so we'll be able to provide services to the community in a more broader way, and that we'll be serving people that may be living at home that need additional services, and hopefully we'll be able to provide care management and help them access the community services that are available, and perhaps even provide some if needed. So I think that's the future. And lastly, obviously, to continue to raise money to be able to provide innovative services for the people we serve and support.
All right. Well, very good. Kerri, anything to add to that, or did she cover it pretty well?
I can't follow that. Amen is what I have to add to that.
Very good. So kind of before we move on to some shift gears slightly, before we come back to, finishing up with some good information on Holy Angels, is there anything I haven't asked or anything that you'd like to, share before we kind of shift gears a little bit, or?
Yeah, and I don't know if this is a question, but a lot of times people ask us about our funding and how are we financially supported. And, Kerri mentioned this, about 80% of our funding comes from state and federal dollars based on disability, including education and health care and other services that are funded. But we are very dependent on contributions and donations and events and grants to be able to operate. About 20 to 25% is required to keep just day-to-day operations going. And that's really, really important. So we're extremely grateful to the community, both Gaston County and beyond, because we're really having to raise over $3 million a year, closer to $3.5 million to just operate. At the same time, we're also trying to build for the future, so we do have an endowment as well. But people don't realize the cost that it takes to care for a person with multiple needs. So I think that, I'm just grateful for the support we've received, both from a volunteer basis as well as from a financial basis or fundraising basis.
Well, we'll be sure before we finish, we'll find out specifically and share how people can donate, how people can get involved, how people can volunteer. So we'll make sure make sure we get that covered and have it in the show notes for our, our 7 listeners can volunteer and do something. So, this is kind of for both of them. Maybe start with you, Kerri. What advice would you give someone wanting to get involved with an organization like Holy Angels, whether from a volunteer standpoint or career potentially?
Sure. We have this thing that we say at Holy Angels, and we use this word exceptional. And we only want to hire exceptional people to serve the exceptional people that live at Holy Angels. And so, the advice I would say is that come with a heart. Know that, as Regina said earlier, you may be coming to work or volunteer or be involved with a ministry.
Right.
And so bring your heart to work or to volunteer, and know that we have high standards, and we need you to come and be exceptional.
Well, very good. Regina, would you add anything to that? Or
You know, I think just the opportunity for people to be part of a mission bigger than themselves is really what Holy Angels is about.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so a lot of opportunities, and again, we'll come back to that, but we do like to shift gears a little bit. We often can talk about some really great organizations and some I don't know, maybe some heavy topics every now and then. So we're going to shift gears to what we call today. We call it something different every week. So I'm going to call it today, do you really work and live in Gaston County? Round of questions. That be all right?
Yeah.
All right. So this is really what the team at Holy Angels is wanting to know about the two of you. So this is very important. All right. So Regina, we'll start with you. First question is, what is your favorite Tony's ice cream flavor?
Oh, that is a no-brainer for me. Chocolate and the chocolate milkshakes.
That is what I'm talking about. She just nailed Stephen Long right there with that exact one. I say, every time I go, I'm gonna get something different this time, and I just can't do it. I get the exact same thing every time. Kerri?
Well, I'm surprised Regina didn't tell mine, because I know she knows that we've shared a few Tony's milkshakes together, but it's grape.
Grape.
Yes.
Wow. When my mother was younger, in fact, I think the story was when she was maybe pregnant with Joel. I'm gonna blame Joel for this one. She had this craving for grape Tony's ice cream, and I have to admit, I've had it, and it's surprisingly good. When I first heard that about ice cream, I was like, what? But it's actually pretty good. All right, next question. Kerri, Sundrop or Cheerwine?
Really neither, but I'll go with Cheerwine.
Okay. Yeah, I know. We had, when I had Renee Anthony on from the Heart Society, she was kind of chastising me about some of these questions, and maybe we shouldn't talk about these kind of things on, these unhealthy choices, Tony's, and that's why we took the barbecue question out. But Regina, what about you?
Oh, diet Cheerwine.
Okay. Regina, favorite local restaurant?
Oh, I have to say Cherubs.
I
I
was going to say, if we might have to edit this one in if somebody didn't actually say that. That was kind of a loaded question for this one. So,
and Cherubs does serve Tony's ice cream.
Oh gosh. You know what? I'm not sure I knew that. I don't pay attention. I just go for the breakfast. Or Kerri?
The Spruce Goose. It's in McAdenville.
Yes.
It's a great place to have lunch and breakfast.
Those are the two correct answers, by the way. Kerri, favorite outdoor activity in Gaston County?
Oh, Crowder's Mountain, hands down. I'm there at least once a week.
Yeah, it's it is really, again, another unique thing about Gaston County. Regina, what about you?
Well, I don't know if I want to say this, but I lived in Gaston County for the whole time I've been here, but I just recently, a year ago, moved to Denver, North Carolina, and getting ready for the next season of my life.
Right.
But I lived in Lakewood in Cramerton and lived right across from Goat Island, and I just love that little place and the trails and everything.
Yeah,
it's
we were
just a great place.
We had a group there just this past Saturday doing the walk to end Alzheimer's. So, yeah, it is a great location, and they've even extended the part of the Carolina Thread Trail there now for, another mile or so. So, yeah, it's a great location. All right, so this is my loaded question that I put in here every week, and there's lots of reasons for it, and I don't care what our guests say. I'm going to ask it anyway. So, Regina, UNC Duke or NC State?
Oh, hands down, UNC, Carolina. My son went to Carolina, graduated twice from their programs, and we are a Tar Heel family. And I know you're red.
Oh, I'm moving on. Kerri?
Go Tar Heels.
I'm not even sure what to say. Can we just edit this entire episode? Have we had two people yet say UNC? No. Of course, I think I say this every episode. Yeah, I mean, I'm married to Tar Heel, so we have a mixed family. And speaking of that, I have a senior at Western Carolina at the moment, and a junior at Appalachian.
Oh wow!
So we're all into the college thing right now. Regina, I love this question. What is something very few people know about you?
Well, I said I was from New York, but I was born in Brooklyn, and my father was a New York City fireman.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Kerri, what about you?
I lived the first 2 years of my life in Germany. My father was in the Army, and our family moved there when I was 6 weeks old. And I have a major sweet tooth, and Twizzlers are my favorite candy.
Twizzlers.
Yes.
So is that like something you can, if you went trick-or-treating, is that something that people would give out, Twizzlers?
Yeah, you can get them in little trick-or-treat size bags.
Okay, wow. I think that's like one of my kids, maybe even my wife is a Twizzler fan. No, I don't think I'm a Twizzler fan. Amy, Elizabeth, are y'all Twizzler fans? All right. Kerri, how about a book or anything you would recommend, a blog, article, or?
You know, I did just finish reading a book. It's a Christian-based book, actually. It's called Get Out of Your Head by Jeannie Allen, and it really is about sort of what everybody's walking through right now, that we have control of our actions and our thoughts, and how you apply that in everyday life, and I highly recommend it.
Okay. What was the name of it again? I'm sorry.
Get Out of Your Head by
Get Out of
Jeannie
Your Head.
Allen.
All right, I will check that out. Yeah, I have a thing where I try to remember to talk to myself instead of listen to myself. Some of the things that I say without unintentionally, to your point there, I get in my own head sometimes. It's not great. Regina, what about you?
Well, I mentioned that I'm kind of on the downward slide here after 40 years at Holy Angels, and there's a book and I mentioned it's called Next Season.
Okay.
And it's really about transitioning from an executive level responsibility and position to retirement in the future.
Yeah, I would imagine that can be kind of traumatic sometimes,
It's a little bit, overwhelming.
I'm sure. Listen, I appreciate that kind of getting us shifting gears there a little bit, but we do like to, this is a podcast about Gaston County, and people like to hear about, the individuals that we're interviewing. So we're going to kind of shift gears back to Holy Angels and have a few more questions for you, then we'll wrap this up. So maybe, Regina, start with you. Besides Holy Angels, why would you say Gaston is such a great place?
Stephen, hands down the people, and the place. I've been involved, as you have been, and Kerri has been, for making a difference in this community. And I think that Gaston County, for many, many years, has been undersold. And I'm very excited about the work that's been done in bringing more people that really want a quality of life, of places to go, people to see, places to have fun, and I just think we have it all here, in really a smaller community kind of place, and I think that people know people, and they say hello to people and things like that, and I think the business leaders in this community have done a remarkable job in leading the way to for Gaston County to be the place, and I think it is becoming the place.
Well, I appreciate that. I agree, and to your point, I'm forever seeing the both of you guys, your names and involved in so many things and so many events. So, as a business owner and resident here, I sure appreciate that. Kerri, what about you?
As I mentioned earlier, as a Charlotte native, the perception when I was younger was not the best of Gaston County. I spent a lot of time here. I had a family here that I spent a lot of time with here in Gaston County, but I've worked in Gaston County for 23 years. I've been a resident now for 15, and I just love it. And Gina said it, the people make this place.
Sure.
And I have loved being involved in the businesses and the leaders in this community, and I've really never experienced seeing a group of people who love where they live rally together to help make it a better place.
That's good. Yeah, and that's been a relatively common theme yet, but it is the people, and they step up, and when things, or organizations or people or whatever the case might be, the people step up and are here to help. And
there's a few more breweries in the county too, which is a really good thing.
I am liking Kerri more and more. The more that that is, I don't know if I should admit this on a podcast that we're going to make public, but our kids have been to breweries all over the Southeast and maybe even other parts of the country. So they're used to being dragged into breweries with my wife and I. That's kind of our thing when we travel. So Kerri, maybe start with you. If you weren't involved with Holy Angels, what do you think you might be doing?
Wow. Well,
when you have a mission, though,
yes.
It's okay. Maybe if you can't think of anything, because I realize that what you're doing is maybe viewed as a mission.
Sure. Growing up, I always wanted to be a flight attendant. I don't know if I weren't at Holy Angels that I would actually be doing that, but, I got a degree in social work, and I knew I always wanted to help people. So I feel like I would be somewhere, hopefully, giving back and helping others.
Very good. Regina, what about you?
Kerri makes my job easy because I would say the same thing. Both of us have that heart, and both of us have a social work background. And I think just making a difference in people's lives and really getting to know people. But I also think having fun in life is really important. Yeah, so whatever it is, have fun.
Yeah, you're the passion for what you guys are doing comes out, and it's obvious. And so I do think for what you do, it does take. How can I put this? Everybody's not maybe cut out for it, and you do have to have that in your heart. So, Kerri, I'm going to start with you. This is probably, I think I say this every week, this is my favorite question. Looking back, I know it's just been a couple years. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I have a 19-year-old now who's close to 20, and so I'm hoping that the same advice I would give her would be what I would give my 20-year-old self. But, just work hard. Live your dream, and whatever you do it for the best in you and what you can bring out the best in others. When you're 20, you're not really thinking that way. But hopefully, I had great parents who instilled good things in me. And so, it just would be to work hard and live your dream and be nice to people while you're doing it.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I have a 20-year-old. And my junior app is a 20-year-old. My senior
Don't
is 22.
Don't go to breweries.
And, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I have a 15-year-old too, so hopefully we'll correct all our mistakes with the 20-year-old and get it right with the 15-year-old. Sorry, Hannah, if you're listening to this one. Regina, what about you, your 20-year-old self?
I think it would be, do what you love and do something that makes you happy, but that makes other people happy. I think, it's okay to make a difference in people's lives.
Right. Yeah, that's very good. So, listen, this has really been good. So, before we finish it, anything else you guys would like to close with, or before we finish this up? Or you have covered a lot. Let me tell you, it's been really good.
I just think that we're grateful for the opportunity to be here and to share our story of Holy Angels, because as you said earlier, Stephen, people may not know about us, but
right.
It's kind of a jewel in this community.
Oh, absolutely,
that,
it sure is.
I hope people will appreciate more and more the uniqueness of it and the opportunity to serve in a variety of capacities. And if anybody really has a heart and is interested in employment, we are hiring.
Unfortunately, so is everyone else at the moment, but absolutely. So where can listeners go to learn more about the organization, to volunteer? Are there any events, just anything that you can share there, and we'll make sure that that's, is clear, not only from whatever you share, but also in the show notes afterwards.
So obviously we have a website, www.holyangelsnc.org. So there's a lot of information on there, everything from how to donate to how to apply, to how to volunteer, but also most importantly to learn about our mission and the many programs and services that we provide. And I think that as far as volunteering, since we are kind of in a holding pattern, just to keep checking back there.
Okay.
And I'm going to let Kerri talk about our next events that are coming up.
Okay.
So we have an event coming up on December 19th. It's a Sunday. It will be rounding out our 65th year. It is called Share the Light, and it is a luminary event that is actually on our campus. So we invite everyone who is on their way and on their way home from visiting McAdenville to ride through Holy Angels this evening. Will begin at 6 p.m., and it's an opportunity for us to share our campus. We'll have a live nativity, live animals, and it's also an opportunity to fundraise. You can go on our website and purchase a luminary, or you could purchase an angel, or we welcome anyone who would be interested in sponsoring the event as well. But you don't have to pay anything to come onto the campus and enjoy it that evening.
Well, that's really good. Yeah, at an event, and this will be out 2 weeks or so from now, so there'll be plenty of time for anyone to get hear about that. So, guys, this is really terrific. I appreciate your time. And something that I try to do at each episode is pick out my own kind of book recommendation and then kind of a quote or thought for the week. And I try to kind of apply it to maybe the organization that we're speaking with. And this is actually a repeat authors, but Chip and Dan Heath, actually one of the brothers lives, their brothers, one of them lives in Raleigh area, I think. But they wrote a book called The Power of Moments. And it's really good. I'm not going to get into all the details of it. I would highly recommend it. But I brought this one up because I'm involved with a group called F3, and we have a kind of an organization that was sprung out of F3 called Speed for Need. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but I had the opportunity to push a resident from Holy Angels, and I am embarrassed I cannot remember his name because it's been 4 years ago now, at the Community Foundation run. In fact, I think it was the last Community Foundation run because of weather and COVID. You know, the last 3 haven't been able to do it. But that might have been one of the most impactful things that I have personally ever done. His dad brought him over, and we had there were 2 other individuals that we push. It's a 5K race, and we have these terrific what we call chariots. And man, it was just so impactful. And there was I meant to bring it in here. There's a picture that I have posted on my wall in my office that the Gazette took, because we got to start early, and we started pushing him. He put his arms out like he was flying. And I'm going to tell you what, that was just something. So that's an example of I think the things that probably go on a daily basis at Holy Angels, and why I wanted to mention that book, The Power of Moments, because that's ultimately what a lot of this is about. And the second piece, I think you both have mentioned this. My quote for this week comes from Plato, and I kind of categorize it in kindness, grace, and compassion. But the quote is, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." You know, look around, listen. I think we can maybe use a little more kindness around, a little more grace for each other. That is one of my favorite quotes, and I wanted to share that one. I think it relates to really what the good work that Regina and Kerri and everyone at Holy Angels is doing. So, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com. Really? gastonsgreat.com. I think it's correct. You're laughing at. You can also find us and subscribe and rate. Did I already say that? On iTunes, Spotify, and Google. Thanks again to Regina Moody and Kerri Massey from Holy Angels for being our guests today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Amy Anderson and Elizabeth King from GSM Services, and edited here locally, probably by the Sumner Group. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.